Well, good evening. This is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the 26th of March, a Monday evening. And our first story. Adult film star says she was threatened. Now, this is Stormy Daniels, and she is looking very modest as she sits there and talks to Anderson Cooper. And this was a long-awaited 60 minutes interview with Stormy Daniels. Now, Stormy Daniels, as you may know, is a stripper and a porn star. It says adult film star Stephanie Clifford, that's her real name, Stephanie Clifford, told 60 Minutes that she struck a US $130,000 deal for her silence about an alleged affair with US President Donald Trump in the final days of the 2016 campaign because she was worried about her safety and that of her young daughter. That concern, she told 60 Minutes in the interview, was broadcast Sunday night, was based on a threat she received in 2011 from a man who approached her in Las Vegas. Now, the first thing we have to point out here is that from the get-go, you get the impression that the affair took place in 2016, and that is not the case. Stormy Daniels was threatening to talk about the affair in 2016. She had entered into a non-disclosure agreement. That's what the $130,000 was for, and she accepted that. And now she was threatened in 2011. That is quite a long way away from 2016. And the story is, I was in a parking lot going to a fitness class with my infant daughter, she told the 60 Minutes correspondent and CNN host Anderson Cooper, according to a transcript of the interview. And a guy walked up on me and said to me, "Leave Trump alone, forget the story." And he leaned around and looked at my daughter and said, "That's a beautiful little girl. It would be a shame if something happened to her mom." Okay, so she's obviously very concerned about that, but the bit of the story that I kind of find interesting, and they have actually changed this because I did see this part of the interview with Anderson Cooper, and it says that asked by Anderson Cooper why she was taking the legally risky route of sitting for a nationally televised interview, she said, "I was perfectly fine saying nothing at all, but I'm not okay with being made out to be a liar." And actually what she said was she was concerned about her reputation. It goes on to say, Miss Clifford said during the interview that while she had seen Mr. Trump more than once, she had sex with him a single time, unprotected. That happened shortly after they met at a celebrity golf tournament in Lake Tahoe, California in 2006. Mr. Trump was 60 at the time and Miss Clifford was 27. Okay, so the event took place actually in 2006. Now this is a long way from the election. Though she said she had not been particularly attracted to Mr. Trump, he said that it was great, she said, and told her he had a great evening and it was nothing like he expected, that I really surprised him, that a lot of people must underestimate me, that he hoped I would be willing to see him again and that we would discuss the things we had talked about earlier in the evening. Mr. Trump, she said, had raised the possibility that he get her onto his reality show, Celebrity Apprentice, but it would not come to be. Okay, so this sounds like a very strange affair. Why would you go to bed with someone if you're not attracted to them? Oh, sorry, I forgot what she does for a living. God, did I say that out loud? Jesus. And of course, the quid pro quo is Trump said that he could get her on the show. So she hopped in the sack with him. There you go, that's what it's all about. That's how that business works. Okay, the reason I bring this up is not because I particularly like Donald Trump and think that he should be protected, or that I particularly dislike Stormy Daniels. You are what you are, you do what you do, I do what I do. If you're cool with it, then it's cool. If you're doing it under duress, then it's not cool. But so I really don't have any emotional attachment to any of this, except that here again, this is the example I wanted to point out, is it's the press that is distorting this story. And whether you like Trump or not, okay, the press have told us that they are impartial. And that is not what I call impartial. So if they're not going to be impartial over critical stories like this, how can you possibly have faith in the media to be impartial over anything which they happen to like one moment or dislike another? Like if you're in the news, or if you look like a story right for the picking and there's maybe some blood all over it, they are going to go after that and distort the news however they see fit. And I think we call this on the internet clickbait. Okay, so that's what I'm concerned about, and I think that's what we should all be concerned about, is the absolutely terrible biased reporting from the media. And you can call this actually fake news. Okay, so anyways, bear in mind, I'm just going to show you this picture again. Here she is, Stephanie Clifford. Okay, now I'm going to go through her history a little bit, and we will see who Stormy Daniels really is. So take a look at that, and I'll come back in a moment. So just exactly who is Stormy Daniels? And here we are at Wikipedia. Stormy Daniels, Stephanie Gregory Clifford, born March 17, 1979, professionally known as Stormy Daniels, Stormy Waters, or simply Stormy, is an American pornographic actress, stripper, screenwriter, and director. She's a member of the Night Moves AVN XRCO Halls of Fame. In 2009, a recruitment effort led her to consider challenging the incumbent David Vitter for the 2010 Senate election in her native Louisiana. Early life. Daniels was born as Stephanie Gregory Clifford in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Daniels' parents divorced when she was 4. She was subsequently raised by her mother. She attended Scotlandville Magnet High School in Baton Rouge and was the president of the 4-H Club and editor of the school newspaper. At one point she considered becoming a journalist. Daniels was fond of horses growing up and worked answering phones at a stable during high school. Daniel has said of her childhood that she came from an average, lower-income household. There were days without electricity, and has described herself as coming from a really bad neighborhood. Career. Daniels' first experience stripping happened when she was 17, visiting a friend at a strip club, where she was convinced to perform a guest set. She then began stripping for work at the Gold Club in Baton Rouge, then diversified to become a feature entertainer with Continental Theatrical Agency in September 2000. She chose her stage name to reflect her love of Motley Crue, whose bassist Nicky Sixx named his daughter Storm. Since she's from Louisiana, she chose the last name Daniels after seeing a Jack Daniels advertisement that read, "A Southern Favorite." While working as a feature entertainer, she met Devon Michaels, who was doing lesbian scenes in a pair of upcoming films, one for Wicked Pictures and one for Sin City. And Michaels invited Daniels to accompany her. Daniels accompanied Michaels to her Wicked shoot, where she met Brad Armstrong and co-starred with Michaels in her Sin City scene, American Girls Part 2. Afterwards, Armstrong invited Daniels to stay with him, and she continued doing lesbian scenes only. In July 2002, Daniels was cast as the lead in a feature film for Wicked Pictures called Heat, where she did her first heterosexual scene, and in September of the same year she signed an exclusive contract with Wicked. In 2004 she won Best New Starlet Award from Adult Video News. Now this is kind of interesting. Politics. A group of fans attempted to recruit Daniels to run against Republican Senator David Vitter in Louisiana 2010. The recruitment process was centered around the website draftstormy.com. On May 21, 2009, she formed an exploratory committee, initially inspired by revelations about Vitter's connection to a prostitute ring. In August 2009, her campaign manager's car was blown up, although no one was in the car at the time. In April 2010, Daniels finally declared herself a Republican candidate. Her decision was inspired by disclosures that the Republican National Committee, RNC, had paid expenses for fundraisers at a lesbian bondage-themed nightclub in Los Angeles, stating that the revelations finally tipped the scales. She explained that the RNC's use of party funds for sex convinced her that the Republicans represented her libertarian values best. Daniels said she had been a registered Democrat throughout her life, but now I cannot help but recognize that over time my libertarian values regarding both money and sex and the legal use of one for the other is now best espoused by the Republican Party. She made several listening tours around Louisiana to focus on the economy, as well as women in business and child protection, and stated that if elected she would likely retire from the adult industry. She announced on April 15, 2010 she would not be running for the Senate, saying she could not afford a run for the Senate seat and stating that the media never took her candidacy seriously. TMV, Stormy Daniels, President Trump makes stripping great again. And here she is, she's resurrected her career. Stormy Daniels opened her big mouth about President Trump. That is, and that proved to be her best career move, because now she's coming to dance a pole near you. And of course here are some pictures down here. Stormy Daniels, hot video shots. Stormy Daniels, pay me. I'll tell you about Trump. Maybe, but probably not. And that's from Campster. Stormy Daniels will blow off her hush agreement with President Trump and torpedo her 60 minutes interview for the low price of $3.99 per minute. Stormy posted a promo for Campster, the online cam service she uses to book private video chats and sex shows with fans, and she's playing the Trump card to the max. The ex-porn star says, "I would love to tell you the real story about what happened, maybe even with you know who." Clever business move on her part, although Anderson Cooper can't be thrilled considering his interview with her is set to air on Sunday's 60 Minutes. But to keep it real, Stormy's a giant tease. She knows if she lets all her secrets out to random people online, she has a zero guarantee that those secrets stay private. Imagine all the reporters who'd be signing up for a cam session. Plus, political scandal ain't what most Camster customers pay to see, or so we hear. Okay, so here's a little clip of good old Stormy in action. There you go. And it says, Stormy Daniels made good on a promise to make America horny again. At least she made some dudes in a South Carolina strip club pretty horny. Stormy, who said she hooked up with Donald Trump back in 2006 and later denied it, played to a standing room only crowd at the Trophy Club in Greenville. Okay, so here we are. This is my joke of the day. Darth Vader and Facebook. Wah, 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 wah. And there is little Mr. Zuckerberg. I'm so sorry, it won't happen again. Oh yeah? Well, you know, of course we all know that he would not be on this stage had he not been caught. Okay, and there is going to be more of this come out, and I see that their shares are dropping even further, and I see that more and more people are deleting their Facebook account, and so you should. It is absolutely disgraceful how you are harvested for information. There's something seriously wrong with that, and we're creating literally millions of dollars just by watching the internet and commenting, liking, disliking, and allowing those ads to be placed annoyingly either up and down the side of the screen or actually inserted into the YouTube videos themselves. So yes, think on. Next story. Self-driving SUV at fault in killer crash. And here we are. This is the second Uber accident with a self-driving vehicle, and the experts have concluded that it was the fault of the tech on board, that it should have seen the woman and identified her. Well, actually, it's kind of interesting. Listen to the words they use here. I'm a big one for words, okay, because words do not happen by accident. This is why Cliff High's linguistics program works, because the emotional weight of words and the things used to describe things are important. So it says, the victim did not come out of nowhere. She's moving on a dark road, but in an open road. So LiDAR, laser and radar should have detected her and classified her as a human. There you go, classified as a human. Now this is an interesting little snippet right here. It says, also, Uber's human backup driver appears on the video to be looking down before the crash and appears startled about the time of the impact. Now, can you imagine sitting at the wheel of a car, letting the car drive itself? You've got nothing to do. You just sit there in this very small, narrow space, and how long is it going to take before you're nodding off? Come on. You know, like, I don't know how you can possibly do that and pay attention all the time to make sure the car is behaving itself on the road. So this was bound to happen. I'm sure there are going to be many more situations like this, but I can assure you, I, for one, will not be getting into a self-driving car, and I will not be purchasing a self-driving car until we are up to about the 5th generation. And if I have survived those bystander accidents in that period of time, maybe I will consider getting a taxi cab that's self-driven. So yes, just be very, very, very wary of this technology. Don't be rushing out and get this stuff. Wait till they perfected it a little bit. Yeah, next story. This is interesting. This is Venezuela divides its currency amid hyperinflation crisis. Now this is another Zimbabwe going on. President Maduro has completely lost control of the country and the currency. Okay, it's a short piece, so I'll just read you the whole thing, because this is a cautionary tale. You know, Venezuela is not a backward country, or it wasn't. It's slipping that way. It's basically falling apart in a food shortage crisis and a social cohesion crisis. Venezuelans said on Friday they lacked confidence in President Nicolas Maduro's decision to knock 3 digits off the country's ailing bolivar currency amid soaring hyperinflation. The measure will divide the bolivar by 1,000, will take effect as of June 4th. The leader announced on Thursday new notes will be issued, although there will be no change in the bolivar's value. Now, you see, the interesting thing is they used to do this in Russia, right, when Russia went through its ruble crisis. And what they would do, for example, they would have stamped on the bill June the 1st, and they would give you a certain amount of time to turn in all your old bills, or they would become, they would lose their value completely. They wouldn't be accepted by the banks. So you were forced to cash in your existing currency, losing 1,000 to 1 of its value. Ain't that great? Can you imagine? Can you imagine you saved $90,000 in the bank for your retirement, and all of a sudden you've got 30 days after June 1st to cash it in. So you go to cash that in and you get 94 bucks. How'd you like them apples, huh? And trust me, this has happened in Germany, in the Weimar Republic. This has happened in Zimbabwe, and now it's happening in Venezuela. I don't know how many meltdowns Argentina has had in the past, and China over its history have had so many meltdowns, hyperinflationary events, and so on and so forth. So this is not an isolated incident, and it's a cautionary tale to any country that wants to overprint its currency to resolve its debt problems. So we will be hearing a lot more from Venezuela in probably the near future. You'll see a Zimbabwean-like collapse. You see, I've got a Zimbabwe, I've got a $500 million Zimbabwean bill in my barber shop, and at that point in time, inflation had hit a staggering 79 billion%. I mean, they just couldn't keep up. The last bill they printed was a billion Zimbabwean dollar bill, because they just couldn't keep up with the the speed of the inflation. So these things can get out of control very quickly. This is the hockey stick, okay? You go along the bottom for so long, and then all of a sudden it accelerates out of all proportion. So be aware. This could be a story coming from Europe, maybe. Italy is in desperate trouble still. We don't talk about Spain, but they haven't recovered. Okay, Portugal hasn't really recovered either. And Greece, of course, is still just an absolute basket case. So these countries are dropping one by one. So again, watch out for some interesting financial news during the course of 2018. Okay, next story. Sousa's eye candy leaves sour taste. Okay, so the man at the very front of the podium there is Charles Sousa, and he is the Finance Minister of Ontario. And what he said was, "Thank you for the eye candy behind me," he said. Sousa later said he was sorry. Oh dear. More inappropriate. And it's always funnier when it comes from the Liberal government, because the Liberal government are always rubbing your face in political correctness. And here we see their ministers absolutely no different from Conservative ministers and senators who they love to point the finger at. And of course the saying that comes to mind here is that people who live in glass houses should not throw stones. And next story is Crisis in Confidence. Okay, so this is a story. A privacy czar warns of gap in law covering data. Now this has come out of the political party's usage of companies like Cambridge Analytica to scour data from the internet, in this case particularly Facebook, and use that data to target voters, to convince voters that they should vote for that political party or belief. And of course it's come out now that the Brexit No campaign used Cambridge Analytica, and this has all come up because this guy here who worked for Cambridge Analytica, Christopher Wiley, also worked with a company called AggregateIQ, and they apparently worked with the Brexit campaign, and they were saying that it was a way to funnel money through another group without showing that they had paid for this information. Okay, because they have the same kind of campaign spending rules over in England as we do here. Now, of course, it doesn't mention, but I am absolutely certain, 100% certain, although I cannot prove it, that the yes side of the Brexit vote will have paid for the same kind of information to try and influence the voters. And I suspect, and it's kind of interesting because, you know, the no side was the side that was supposed to lose, and they had the least amount of money to campaign on and this kind of stuff. The yes side had literally millions and millions and millions of pounds because the government was behind it. You know, the government was supporting a yes vote to stay in Europe. So you can imagine how many people really did vote, or how deeply the feeling was in Brexit. Okay, so the reason I bring it up in context with this article is Daniel Therian says the fact federal laws on handling personal information do not cover political parties amounts to a gap that could jeopardize the integrity of the electoral process. Okay, so this guy Daniel Therian, he is a privacy czar, and he warns of gap in law covering data. And he says that the fact that federal laws on handling personal information do not cover political parties amounts to a gap that could jeopardize the integrity of the electoral process. And he says there should be a law governing the use of personal data by parties to prevent manipulation of the information to influence an election, Privacy Commissioner Daniel Therian said on Thursday in an interview. From a privacy perspective, personal information is unregulated with respect to political parties, so that's clearly not a good thing, Therian said. Neither of the two federal privacy statutes, one for government institutions and one for private sector organizations, covers political parties. The absence of regulation facilitates the manipulation of information to influence elections in a way which I think is completely contrary to the public interest. So there you go. Once again, John Q. Public is getting whipped at the post by the people that we pay to represent us. I think it's an absolute disgrace. It has to end. And I, for one, am absolutely sick and tired of listening to government propaganda around election times. Right now, Justin Trudeau has broken every single promise, or weaseled out of every single promise that he made on his platform, except for the legalization of marijuana. And it's done in such a way that the provinces are basically now going to criminalize everybody under the age of 19 and restrict the growing of marijuana to their criminal buddies who used to be in politics, in the police force, as with Julian Fantino, Ernie Eves, who used to be the finance minister for the Conservative Party and previous premier of Ontario. And so, they're protecting this operation like it's a government monopoly for their criminal friends. And we are getting so manipulated here, folks. We have to wake up to this. We have to wake up to the manipulation and the propaganda that's taking place. And that leads me back to my first story about Stormy Daniels, and again how we are being manipulated with a press that wants to portray a story in a particular fashion. Anyway, I've juxtaposed those two, the press's version and what I found out on the internet, and I will let you draw your own conclusions on that one. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this, and please, if you have, like and subscribe below, and we will be talking to you very, very soon with all kinds of other little nuggets that I pull out of the news. So you take care, you have a great evening and a great week. Take care now. See ya.